Attention denizens of planet Earth.
Broadcasting from Carbondale in Southern Illinois' premier comic shop. And now your host, superlative shaman of comic book knowledge, Dan Brown. Flash the match signal in case of emergency for your host with the most on his mind, Matt Morton. Watch out, criminals. There's nothing funny to him about truth, justice, and the American way. It's Commander Harris himself, Scott Reed. And tuning in from the far reaches of no man's land, the mad scientist dream leader, Mike Ho. This is Campus Comics Cast.
Hey there, welcome to the latest episode of the Campus Comics Cast. We're going to be talking about a few different things this time. Just let everybody know we are still recording remotely. We're not meeting up at the store yet. You know, we're all sort of social distancing still. But the store is open. If you want to come by and see us there at 816 East Main Street, Suite B in Carbondale. Phone number is 618-457-6011, Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 6, if you want to come by. So once again, this is Dan Brown, and I'm joined by
Scott Reed
and Mike Atchison.
And I think we wanted to start off with like a few little news items to go over. Some of this is a couple weeks old, but we haven't talked about it yet on here. I guess first thing to start off with is we had another creator pass away a couple weeks ago, Joe Sinnott, longtime Kirby inker, Marvel artist for a long time, passed away a couple weeks ago. Again, kind of a bummer. Another, kind of older creator. I think he was like in his 90s.
I saw 93 is what I think I saw.
So again, another old creator that we've lost.
Pretty much regarded as like Kirby's best inker, I think. There was also, oh gosh, and I shouldn't have even mentioned this because I'm blanking on the name. There was another inker that was also popular with Kirby, but he inked, Sinnott inked the Galactus trilogy from FF48 through 50. So, I mean, yeah. And the first appearance of Dr. Doom in FF5.
A lot of the FF inks on Kirby on there.
Mm-hmm.
Also around the same time, a name that's probably not as familiar to our listeners, but Milton Glaser. He was a graphic designer. He designed the I Heart New York logo that you see on T-shirts and tourist stuff. That's pretty iconic. Everybody knows that. But for us, he designed the DC Bullet logo, which was pretty much like the longest running logo DC's had from I think around 1976 to maybe around 2005, 2006, something like that. They used it.
Yeah, that's about right.
Around then, but
2005, from 1977 to 2005.
Okay, so yeah, so again, pretty long time for that company to have a logo. They switched it up a couple times since then now, but again, it's the pretty iconic logo that was around for quite a while. Well, moving on to Marvel, we saw, so they've got the Star Wars license now for a couple of years from Dark Horse. Now they have gotten the Aliens and Predators licenses, which again, Disney owns Fox now, so it looks like they're bringing it in-house with Marvel. Again, Dark Horse has had this since the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Early 90s, So again, another long-time license for Dark Horse that they're losing to Marvel. They haven't announced any plans yet. I think there was some teaser art that David Finch did,
mm-hmm.
And but no announcements yet as to what they're doing.
Well, the announcement is that they're going to have comics starting in 2021.
Yeah.
So, and include stuff from both the Aliens and the Predator universes. So, my big concern with this is that they're going to try to incorporate these characters into the regular Marvel universe, and that's just going to be a huge mistake because then X number of years down the road they're going to sell the license to somebody else, or sell off that part of the company, because Disney will, take a buck when they get the opportunity. And then you're going to have all these books that they can't reprint and you can't ever see them again. It's like the problem we have with like ROM and Micronauts and those books, you can't get them. And then
they did that with Godzilla too back in the day, right?
Exactly. Yeah. There was FF and SHIELD showed up in issues of Godzilla. So, and those often they can't reprint those stories either. So, because they don't have a license to that character.
Having said that, they're doing Savage Avengers with Conan.
Exactly, and I don't like that at all.
This isn't just an old thing that they don't do anymore. Like, they'll still go to that well.
Mm-hmm.
I think Conan was in the 2099 event too, right? They did a few months back.
I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure there was a Conan 2099 book in there. So again, it sounds ridiculous. Oh, Spider-Man versus aliens, but they'll do it. They did
do a one shot for that. Absolutely fine. Yeah. Just don't do that in the regular Spider-Man proper title.
Yeah, I don't know. I
have one additional news item. It's that you probably heard that Kanye West is going to run for president.
Uh-huh.
And, he says he wants to run the White House like it's Wakanda from Black Panther. So,
well, I don't think we're to that level of technology yet, but apparently Kanye West can get us there.
Of course, he has to get his name on a ballot first, so
yeah.
He's got some roadblocks ahead of him.
Yeah.
Some good Marvel news though is they announced.
So you're saying Alien Predator is not good Marvel news?
Not for Dark Horse.
No, that's true. Okay.
Marvel got the Star Wars Conan and now these licenses from them. So, another license that they've kind of shepherded for decades now, being lost to Marvel. And again, I mean, are we going to see amazing Aliens and Predator books from Marvel?
We see pretty good Star Wars books from Marvel, so it depends on the level of care they want to take with it. So
yeah, and hopefully there's some creators over there who've got Aliens or Predator stories they want to tell. Marvel will back it. We'll see. But again, you can't tell me that's going to be their priority necessarily. With all their other books.
Well, the priority would be what will make them money at the time. So. Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, I cut you off.
Kind of during the quarantine when everything was shut down, Marvel and DC both announced books that would not be returning to shelves. They would just be digital and later collected in trade. Now Marvel has kind of backpedaled on some of that and has said that 19 books that they had previously announced as canceled will be coming out in print in a couple months. Scott, do you have a list?
I've got that list.
To kind of clarify for everybody.
Yeah, so there were 19 books. The following books are going to be released during the August-September time frame. So August 5th, Ant-Man 4 out of 5, Avengers of the Wasteland 4 out of 5, Marvel's Spider-Man, The Black Cat Strikes, issue 4 out of 5. Then August 12th, Ghost Rider 9, Hawkeye Freefall 5, which is a book that I'm specifically glad they're printing. Revenge of the Cosmic Ghost Rider issue 5, August 19th. Valkyrie, Jane Foster, number 10, Ant-Man, which is issue 5 of 5, Star, issue 4 of 5, and then August 26th, Arrow, issue 10, AERO, Arrow, issue 10, Ghost Spider, issue number 10, 2020 Force Works, issue 3 of 3, and then September 2nd, Swordmaster, issue 10, Ravencroft, issue 4 of 5, Avengers of the Wasteland, issue 5 of 5, Hawkeye Freefall 6, and I thought that was a 5-issue series, so I didn't realize that was a 6-issue series. Oh, and then Ravencroft, issue 5 of 5, Star, issue 5 of 5, and Marvel Spider-Man, The Black Cat Strikes, issue 5 of 5. Those last three are September 9th.
So if you're getting any of those books and you still want them, let us know. I'm pretty sure all those previous orders have been canceled for those books, and these all end up being resolicited. So kind of just let us know at the store if you're still wanting any of these, so we make sure we get them for you. I think was that all the news kind of items.
I think it's all the news items that we had down. So.
Okay, so I think we're going to move on. We've been going through one of the only books being published during all this time is the digital first Batman: The Adventures Continues. So we've talked about the previous issues on here. So this time we are going to be looking at chapters 5 and 6, and this is the digital version of these books. This will constitute issue 3 of the physical comic that'll be that will be out. So we're going to be continuing to look at the mentor story here. So we've got a nice cover right off here by Joe Quinones. I'm not sure exactly if that's the right pronunciation. But again, this is written by Alan Burnett and Paul Dini from the Batman the Animated Series show, and drawn by Ty Templeton.
Now,
So,
the cover, I just want to say one thing about the cover. It is a very dramatically different art style than the previous two covers.
well,
So-
they've all been different artists.
Yeah, well, I don't know. It feels a lot different than the first two. I thought the first two for parts 1 and 2, and then the second one for parts 3 and 4 were the same artist. They weren't the same artist.
It's been different artists. It was
Okay.
Dave Johnson on the first, Sean Murphy on the second,
Okay.
and Joe is here on the third issue.
All right.
Still, the style, I agree, is much. It's more realistic of a style, and it caught my eye.
So our story opens up kind of continuing from the cliffhanger of last time with Robin and Deathstroke in the museum fighting Firefly. So pretty much just standard sort of superhero fight. Deathstroke saves Robin, though, at one point from Firefly. And then we have an interlude of Alfred talking to Batman, letting him know what's going on. So Batman hurries to the museum, and he jumps on the back of a fire truck, basically just a step away from ghost riding on this fire truck. And we see some bystanders say, geez, he even has a fire truck.
Yeah. That was like one of my comments about this issue was that. Yeah, was that.
Mine too.
Sort of a fun thing to throw in there, just, kind of commenting on all the various vehicles and gadgets and things that Batman has. So, this kid looks like, assumes that Batman also has a fire truck. And then, we're kind of back to the museum with the Firefly fight. And finally, Batman shows up and takes down Firefly, or so we think, until he causes an explosion and escapes. And then Batman and Deathstroke sort of have this confrontation out on the street, where we're still getting this thing of Deathstroke apparently wants to help out Batman and the family. He says, he talks about Cobra bringing back Garfield Lynch, aka Firefly. What I thought was notable here is Deathstroke comments to Batman that Cobra wants him to damage Gotham 9/11 level. It's rare that we get like a real sort of event mentioned in any of this stuff. Any of the sort of animated series world. Again, it kind of ties it to a particular time, which I think was something they always tried to avoid.
Mm-hmm.
And again, so, it's not that big of a deal, but we are saying this is a post 9/11 world that we're in here. And again,
Right.
most of this stuff is from before 9/11 happened, in the real world. And then we see our mysterious, who is this? We know it's Red Hood, kind of watching everything. And then we cut back to Wayne Manor, where Barbara and Tim are kind of talking. And we can see where Tim is starting to lean more towards Deathstroke, like maybe he will kind of join up with him. And then Barbara, Bruce, and Alfred are all talking about their stalker, which is, Red Hood, and sort of the evidence they have of him being there. Then we kind of cut back to Deathstroke's hideout with him and his character Sonny, and then we realized it was Sonny in the Firefly suit, not Garfield Lynch, and she's sort of taking the beating from everybody here. And we find out that Lex Luthor shows up again, and he's kind of behind this whole plot here with Deathstroke. And we find out that what they're really here for is to kill Batman. And the chapter ends with Red Hood kind of hearing, he's somehow bugged this conversation and hears what Deathstroke is really up to here.
It turns his hair stripe gray instead of white.
Yeah. So now moving on to Chapter 6, Part 4 of this Mentor story. Again, same creative team. And, now we've got, sort of wrapping up Deathstroke and Sonny's conversation. And then we're back in Wayne Manor, where Tim wants to go see the new James Bond film, which has been out for a while. The fun thing about that is, in real life, there should have been a new James Bond movie, which we haven't gotten because of the quarantine. So the timing of this is really funny because that might have been intentional on their part because we were supposed to get a new James Bond movie. Which
is Warner Brothers James Bond?
No.
Okay.
I think it's Universal now.
Okay.
So it's left Sony. But again, Bruce reminds him that he's grounded. Tim comments that Robin is grounded, not him. So he's allowed to go out. Bruce sees that the bat signal is lit and so goes to the top of police headquarters and sees Gordon and some officers knocked out. And there's Deathstroke, who's just trying to get Batman's attention, apparently. And says that he has a lead on Firefly and that they need to go after him. Then we kind of cut to Barbara Gordon now working at the Gotham University Library. So again, kind of call back to, Barbara Gordon being a librarian, which isn't something they ever got to in the cartoon. So it's kind of interesting that they've thrown that in there. And then Barbara finds a note in a book saying it's a trap that was left there by Jason Todd Red Hood. Then we see Deathstroke and Batman at the Tri-State Dam with a bomb attached to it. Batman thinks something's up because this isn't enough explosives to destroy the dam. He's suspicious about Firefly. His build is different. Again, he's starting to figure out that this isn't Garfield Lens. This is Sonny portraying Firefly here.
Yeah, I like the comment on the, he's wearing lifts in his shoes. He should be taller than me.
Yeah.
So again, he hits her with this sort of freeze pellet. And then she's knocked out, and he takes the mask off to reveal that this is not Garfield Lens. Then we have Deathstroke sort of making his move now with his sort of powered sword. Again, no explanation for the glowing fist thing that we got last time we were talking about this. So I'm not sure, what that was all about still, or if it would tie into the sword or something. But, we get a decent fight here with Batman and Deathstroke, and then as he's about to cut down Batman, Batgirl and Robin show up and sort of tie him up with their ropes. Batman grabs some sort of accelerant from Sonny's costume and throws at Deathstroke, kind of lighting him on fire. Deathstroke tells him this is a Kevlar suit. You've only succeeded in making me look more menacing because now he's on fire. So it is pretty cool looking. But yeah, not, what they're going for necessarily in defeating him. And then pretty sure that's Batman there. Just takes Deathstroke out by flinging a fire extinguisher at his head. Knocking him out and then sprays him off with the hydrant or with the extinguisher. Later on, we're back in the Batcave. Alfred's bandaging up Batman like he does, and they kind of talk about what's going on. That there's this guy out there that's sort of tracking them, and he's the one that left the note for Barbara. And then again we cut to Red Hood kind of sitting on a gargoyle. This one looks the gargoyle he's on here looks really specific to some of like the merchandise art from around Batman Returns. I'm not sure if it's based on a certain one or if that's just a coincidence. Something that just kind of stuck out there. And we've got, here at the end, we have next the Wrath of Azrael. So we're going to be getting Azrael next time, it looks like, which, we've known from some of the advanced solicitations and things that story is coming. So, anybody have any thoughts?
So, do we get, since this is all to improve the toy line, do we get a Bat fire truck out of this? Is the question.
I doubt it. There is a real quick panel though during one of the fights that Batman has red eyes.
The infrared scene.
Red. So I'm like, I could almost see there being an exclusive Batman with red eyes figure somewhere.
Well, we gotta get the Deathstroke and then the flaming Deathstroke figure.
Yeah, flaming Deathstroke would be a cool variant.
Yeah, I liked how it was like, don't worry, I've got an asbestos suit, and hey, it's still going to heat up on you, buddy.
Yeah.
It sure did.
I could see a Firefly with a sunny head or something that they could do a figure of that pretty easily, I would think.
You think we'll get a bandage? How about bandaged Bruce Wayne? There's another figure.
You know what? They should. That would be, as much as they've done that, and they did on the cartoon and stuff. That would be a cool figure to do. I feel like people would pick that up that weren't necessarily getting the line. That would be a good figure to produce, I think. That could be a fun one.
Yeah, it was still a pretty solid story. There just wasn't. I didn't have a whole lot of questions about this one. I recognized all the characters this time, and so
Yeah, not a lot of Easter eggs this time. I think they mentioned a Morrison Street in there.
Yeah, Morrison.
So named after Batman writer Grant Morrison.
Yeah, I noticed that. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was about it. So yeah, again, it's been a good, solid story.
Mm-hmm.
I picked up the first issue in print that's come out. The second one's not out yet. But yeah, it's been a really good run so far, and a lot of good covers, a lot of good variant covers they're doing for this. Yeah, hopefully, of course, we're getting a 6-issue miniseries for this toy line. Hopefully, they continue to do something else, even if it's just keeping the toy line going or whatever.
Yeah,
this has been pretty good for what's essentially a tie-in comic to a toy line.
And again, I say this every time, but it's a good storyline for a younger reader who just wants a pretty simple Batman story, so.
Yeah, and pretty much all the animated series books have been that way.
Mm-hmm.
So,
we got to grade this one?
I'm gonna go with very fine, I think. It's solid. It didn't impress me as much as some of the previous entries, I think, but.
Yeah, I'm very fine on it still. I think I have been on all, the equivalent of 3 issues. So it hasn't, it's been solid the entire way through. So
I probably will bump it up to very fine plus because it's just wrapping up a good storyline and in a very clean fashion.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next part. I want to see how we bring in Azrael and that whole story. How much of that do we get into? I don't feel like they have time to do an adaptation of Nightfall. And all that stuff. So I imagine it'll be a pretty streamlined version, kind of what they've done previously in these series, is sort of taking a condensed, sort of streamlined version of events as they happen in the comics when they get to those kind of things.
I just wanted to ask you guys: do you read this? Do you read this on Comixology or online somehow?
Yeah, it's only available. This right now, what we're getting to is only available digitally. It's not out.
That's right.
Yeah, the first issue is the only one that's available in print so far. So the second issue should be soon.
I would think so. Again, shipping's going to be crazy right now with everything going on with distribution. DC switching over. But yeah, it should be any time now. No.
Do you read it page by page, or panel by panel?
Page by page.
I read panel by panel. So
yeah, I can't do panel by panel. I've tried a few times. It's just too detached from how I'm used to reading.
and there's a downside to panel by panel because sometimes the artist does some effects with pages and you lose that when you do panel by panel.
Right.
I remember there was like some Batman story. I want to say it was during New 52, but it may not have been, where actually the pages were deliberately printed upside down.
Oh, yeah.
And the comic, and on, if you read it digitally, it was auto-corrected. So that and even if you had turned it upside down, if your page orientation was automated, it would have flipped it back over anyway. So
was that during the Court of Owls story, the Snyder Greg Capullo stuff?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's that issue where he's in the maze, I think, and that was something they had to talk to DC and the printers about and everything correctly.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly where it was. I just remember.
If it's a recent story, I bet that's what it is.
Yeah, probably so.
Okay, so we want to continue our look at the 80s Vigilante series.
Absolutely.
Yep. We're going to be looking at issues 4 and 5.
I know. Is there anything we need to remind people about before we get into issue 4 and 5? As far as the characters?
Go back and listen to those episodes.
There you go. Okay.
I mean, I feel like it might come up over the course of it if there's anything specific. Again, it's not really to be continued from the last issue or anything.
That is true. Let me get this pulled up here so I can have it side by side. So anyway, so issue 4, written by Marv Wolfman. Now we just have a Keith Pollard cover this time. He's the cover artist. The interior art is from Don Newton. And I tell you what, I really didn't feel like I noticed a dramatic difference. I didn't look and see who the inker was, to see if so the inker may have a real strong hand in the art on this one.
Yeah, it's Pablo Marcos was the inker on this.
Okay, so
Yeah, I've never really seen any inker that outshone Don Newton's penciling.
No.
So he's a pretty strong penciler. He was, because he died only a few months after this. This must have been one of his last works, I'm pretty sure, because he died of a heart attack in August of '84.
oh wow, okay.
Yep.
Yeah. And this is cover dated March 1984, just for everybody kind of playing along at home.
All right, so our story starts here with you have JJ demonstrating his superior hacking skills for 1985 because he was able to get a bootleg release of a movie. It had not been released yet, so that was the big key here. So of course we get the joke about whether or not JJ as a pirate should be telling the vigilante about his illegal activity, and if vigilante is going to have to bring him in for that or not. So anyway, this film.
Not just bring him in. He jokes about shooting him dead.
Yeah.
For video piracy.
Yeah. So anyway, this film stars Clark Reynolds and Grace Moore. And the film definitely has a Gone with the Wind look to it, right? So, but anyway, Clark is now dead, and Grace Moore is apparently the prime suspect. Now, on page 2 of this, I just feel like Adrian Chase is just being a little bit too intimate with this pen, right? It's just all over his face the entire page. But
I couldn't tell if he was vaping or putting lipstick or chapstick.
Yeah, it does look weird on there.
Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't until the last panel. I thought it was a bullet, the first panel, and then it's like, it was that, what is that, chapstick? Is that? So anyway, we move on to the New York court, and Grace is about ready to make her entrance into the courtroom. So of course there's a paparazzi is around, and they're ready to see her appearance. People are talking about what's she going to look like, what she's going to be wearing. So Grace is on the stand, right? Recounts how they were filming, had finished filming early, and basically Grace walks in on Clark with one of the other female cast members. So basically, Grace claims that Clark had struck her. They kind of had a fight. A gun had gotten knocked off of the wall from Clark's prized gun collection. And at this point, she states she doesn't remember shooting him, but remembers the maid Gretchen screaming, and then she woke up in her bed. At this point, the judge, there's going to be another witness that's brought forward. The judge asks how long that's going to take. Decides that the question's going to take a while, so they decide to recess for the day. And then as they're leaving the courthouse, this maid Gretchen is also shot and killed by an assassin. So anything you guys want to bring up at this point in the story?
Yeah, I want to go back to page 3, kind of the start of the trial here. So these two characters, these actors, are supposed to be sort of this old school kind of glamorous Hollywood couple that everybody loves. And again, there's there's talk of what's she wearing to court kind of thing. It's supposed to be like this sort of glamorous actress. So we have 2 days of the trial here, and she's wearing the same thing on both days. That's probably just trying to get a deadline done. Artist not thinking things through, just drawing the same thing twice. She would be wearing a different outfit on the second day.
Yeah.
She's not wearing the same thing to court 2 days in a row.
Well, and I would say it's almost like that little blurb that says as the trial moves into the second day, that may have been added after the fact,
Yeah. I wanted to add that I did a little research because the Clark Reynolds character had that wavy hair. I thought, okay, this is more than just a passing homage to Clark Gable.
Yeah.
So it turns out that Grace Kelly, Grace Kelly, the eventual Princess of Monaco that died in a car crash, I think in the 80s, but she was an actress in the 50s, very prevalent and popular. And she and Clark Gable they were actors in a movie together in 1953 called Mogambo, and they struck up a romance during the filming of that movie. So I think that our esteemed author Marv Wolfman knew a little bit about that whenever he wrote these analogs into the script.
All right. Anything else?
I think that's it for this part.
Or this part. All right. So as the maid is shot, Adrian Chase is there with JJ. Is Terry there too? I think so. But anyway,
they've all gone to court together. They make a point that like Adrian was able to get him into the proceedings because he used to be gay or something, like he knows somebody, so they were able to get into the trial.
Use his connections to go to the celebrity trial of the century. So anyway, he has to change into costume. Of course, he finds this alley, uses JJ and Terry as his lookout. So it takes him a while to actually get changed, but somehow the assassin is still up at the top of the building whenever in the amount of time that it takes him to get changed.
Well, I think we'll get into that later is why that's the case.
Right. So anyway, they have a bit of a chase and a fight. And then eventually the vigilante is able to knock the assassin out of a window, and then he bounces into the Hudson River. I assume it's the Hudson River, so I don't know if they specifically said that or not, but we're talking about New York, so I'm figuring that's what it is. So then we move back to the Reynolds mansion, and there is Grace basically responding to questions from reporters about the death of the maid. Grace, basically hints that since Gretchen was to testify for the prosecution, that it might be because Clark was having an affair with her as well. So trying to, throw some shade at the witness. Then we move to the, I don't know, the home or the estate or the secret lair of the controller. And we have this trench-coated individual who comes in wishing to speak to the controller. The individual comments that there are others who will testify against Grace, and that since his assassin was killed by Vigilante, how are they going to get taken care of? So the assassin, we see, is still around, and we hear at this point we learn that the assassin is actually named the Exterminator. So as far as we know, still alive and kicking. Then we move back to the next witness that's supposed to be going against Grace. This is Mrs. Grant getting into her vehicle after having responded to some questions from reporters. She says that she will be testifying for the prosecution and that her testimony will be shocking. This is just before her car gets blown up by a bazooka attack from the Exterminator. So anything else here before we kind of move into the end of the book?
Yeah, I want to go back to the fight with the Vigilante and Exterminator. The kind of first fight up on the rooftop. Mm-hmm. So over the course of this 3-page fight, there are 4 instances of Vigilante shooting his gun and not getting anywhere near the Exterminator. The first time is Exterminator kicks him and I guess maybe throws him off, but he still fires his gun. Mm-hmm. On the next page, he crashes him into a desk. The panel after that, I'll say this is a little iffy. Because I believe this has been miscolored. But Exterminator throws a typewriter at him. And we've got the caption is kind of cutting off the art. But I think if you look closely, it's colored sort of a lighter green here. But I'm pretty sure that's supposed to be the blast from the gun. And again, nowhere near Exterminator. The previous panel, he's closer to hitting a worker in the office than he is Exterminator. And then when Exterminator goes out the window, he shoots after him, again missing as he falls into the river. Again, just not very good gun safety on the part of the Vigilante in this. Again, we're still sort of sticking with the self-defense thing here, where Exterminator is attacking him at this point, so he's not trying to shoot him down in cold blood or anything. But again, for someone who's going out with guns, I think he'd be a little more accurate with them.
Yeah. And he has a bit of a hair trigger on that.
Yeah. Then I wanted to go. I'm sorry, Mike.
I just want to say, Dan, you have a great eye for detail because I never noticed how many times he was just wildly wielding that Dirty Harry-sized gun.
Yeah. Then I wanted to talk about this design of this character, the Controller. So basically what we have is this sort of decrepit-looking older man in sort of a robot suit or some sort of robot body that he's stuck in now. It's not really explained here. what the deal is. It looks like robotic arms and bodies. It's a little Robbie the Robot.
To me, it looked like a cross between Dr. Savannah and the Brain.
Yeah. What I think was weird is, and again, this is sort of the time, but it's a real sort of action figure looking design for this character, and I think we'll get into some of that in the next issue too. But specifically for me, this looks like when I was younger, there was some demonstration or something where the police had this robot sort of thing there, and it was obviously like a remote controlled thing. Some officer, over there is controlling it or something, but it's going around talking to the kids. It's supposed to be like some kind of robot cop kind of thing, and it had a similar kind of design to this. And it's just with the sort of, I don't know, it's with sort of segmented middle and that kind of thing. It really reminds me of that thing from back in the day. I don't know what that was called or, what the deal was, but that's just something I encountered when I was real young.
And I don't know where that cup of coffee or tea is going because it looks like he's all robotic below the head.
Yeah, well, see, that's the thing. You got to assume that they're still internal organs. The other thing is this might just be for show on his part because he talks to the mysterious trench-coated figure where he wants him to describe what it's like outside in the fresh air. So it feels like this guy's pretty much locked up inside. He's not interacting with normal people, like this. He's probably just in this hidden layer of his all the time now or something. It's sort of the impression that gives. I think that was it for this section.
All right, so it's like we're on I don't know, was it page 13, I think, of the story. So we're back at the Winnebago. We're back at Adrian's Winnebago, which is kind of their headquarters. So Adrian hears the news. I guess the whole team hears the news about the second witness being killed. JJ during this time has been modifying Vigilante's arsenal to basically allow him to use sleep darts to be fired instead of bullets with a flip of the switch. So as much as he's misfired, that's probably a good idea that he just puts somebody to sleep instead of kills them. At this point, Terry receives a call that her kid is sick, and Adrian insists that she goes to be with the kid. The news then reports that a fan of Grace has confessed to killing the other witnesses. Adrian didn't feel that the man matched the physique of the man that he fought, so he thinks it's just some patsy that's taken the fall for somebody else. So let me move on to our next witness, who I guess is a producer named Mr. Levine. Vigilante is basically stalking out the location, assuming that something's going to happen. And this, mini helicopter appears that's carrying the exterminator. The chopper is able to immobilize the security van that Levine is in, and it comes around and it's ready to make another pass. At this point, Vigilante fires a gun with a suction cup that attaches to the chopper and uses it to climb up to the chopper, where he and the exterminator exchange blows, and eventually the Vigilante is able to basically throw the exterminator from the chopper. But whenever the police locate the landing spot where the exterminator should have landed, they basically find just a smoking costume and no body. So now, since this attempt failed, we now actually have some witnesses testifying against Grace in court. And at this point, she basically becomes unhinged and admits to having killed Clark. Grace uses her one phone call apparently from prison to try to call the controller, who is basically unwilling to help her any further. And then at this point, we finally learn that the exterminator is in fact a robot and wasn't a person at all. And that kind of wraps up the story. So, what else from issue 4 for you guys?
Well, going back to page 13, first of all, I'm very impressed that Terry was sporting her monogrammed belt buckle, so we know who she is. It's got the T. And about that suction cup, I can't even get a command strip, one of those things that stick on a wall to hold up something without it falling within a month. Vigilante is a very brave man to trust that suction cup to hold him onto a helicopter.
Well, you don't have JJ making your command strips for you.
Good point.
That's a good point.
That's right.
Yes.
So.
Now, did you notice towards the end of the book here where Grace admitted her guilt? She said that Clark had hired a detective that caught her in bed with another woman.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that was a little twist. That was like,
Yeah.
okay, we're getting to modern times now in this storytelling.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty big twist that she's the one that hired the controller to begin with.
Yeah.
Don't really see
Yeah.
that coming in here. Back to page 13, where they're sort of all in the Winnebago. Why aren't they at the courthouse that day? With everything that's already happened, you would think they would be there for every day of the trial. Or Vigilante would at least be in the neighborhood waiting for something to happen. It seems like that's kind of dropping the ball there. Again, I thought it was interesting. You get this sort of fan coming forward saying he did it. You don't see that a lot in superhero comics, probably just for time's sake. But again, you don't really see kind of people coming forward like that. And again, Vigilante brings up the idea that, he might be psychologically disturbed, and that sort of thing. So he doesn't, really take it that seriously. There is a part 2 where he mentions his 6 months of training again that we haven't seen yet, but I think we're going to be getting to soon.
Yep.
He does throw Exterminator off the helicopter, and again, I don't think Vigilante knows that this isn't a human at this point.
No.
So he definitely intended to kill him with that.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as far as he knows, this guy has survived being thrown in the river too.
Yep.
So, he may not know if he's dealing with a metahuman here at this point or what. But then we do see some police officers find the body to where the exterminator has basically evaporated.
Right.
So the other thing I want to bring up was sort of the ending of the story where, Grace confesses, and you have this sort of idea of this tarnished public persona. Again, celebrities disappointing the public is sort of an everyday thing now in real life.
Yeah.
We're getting this quite a bit now. Again, it probably wasn't as common back in '84. Sort of ahead of the curve there as far as that goes, unfortunately. But again, that's something we kind of deal with all the time now. But again, back in the day, with the sort of Hollywood studio system and, where they would keep things wrapped up and, there's all this back in the day, there's all these questions like, oh, is that actor gay? Like nobody really knows, but, everybody kind of knows, but nobody's public with that kind of thing,
Yeah.
So, again, just sort of, predicting the sort of future we live in now.
Well, and I guess that would be what was considered the more mature content for this series, as opposed to what you got on the spinner rack of the grocery store.
Again, no comics code on Vigilante.
Right, and really, it's refreshing. I mean, today,
yeah.
Today this would not even be. I mean, just the allusion to a gay or lesbian affair is never, rightfully so, shouldn't be a big deal. But back in 1985, I'm sure it did catch some eyes, and
this never would have been approved under the code just for that.
Right.
Even back then.
All right, well, Mike, you ready to take us into issue 5, or are we going to grade issue 4 first?
I don't care. What do you guys think?
Oh,
not really connected, but
I'll say very fine on Vigilante, just for the twist at the end with Grace and all that.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Okay, I'm still at a fine. The first series, I think the first issues have been, for the most part, fine for me. This one is kind of, still feels at that same level. And again, this is probably a series that if I had been buying it on the rack at the time, I don't know that I'd still be buying it. So
I'll give this a very fine plus. I think the Don Newton art is just great. I really love it. And it is, I think it's a little bit better story than the last couple.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm starting to think I need to get a very fine or a very fine plus stamp, because that's where I seem to be landing on every time. But so far it still holds up decently, as long as you know that you kind of take in consideration the era that it was published.
All right, take us away on issue 5.
All right, Vigilante number 5, published in April, a cover date, April of 1984. Oh, those years ago. I graduated in 1984. This was written by Marv Wolfman, and both the cover art and interior art was by Keith Pollard, inks by Romeo Tangau. What I noticed right off the bat, reading these two comics back to back, is that there was a juxtaposition between last issue, number 4, where we have a worm's eye view looking up at Vigilante hanging from the elevator, the helicopter. Yeah. And then on issue 5, we have a bird's eye view looking down at Vigilante facing off against these two new assassins. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it kind of jumped out at me. The story is called Witnesses. Vigilante comes across a villain in a green costume, lining up his sights on his intended victim down the street. The costume is similar, I noticed, that in color scheme of that Russian hero Starfire, who was also eventually changed his name to Red Star. Yeah. Vigilante thinks to himself that it's unusual to do proactive policing, as his usual MO is catching criminals that somehow evade jail time. But in this case, he seems okay with the role of the standard superhero. Vigilante uses his trademark nunchucks to take down the villain, but they're pretty evenly matched, enough so that the sniper was able to pull off his shot and kill the victim down on the street, which I find that very hard to believe that, during the middle of this fight, he was able to actually get back into a pose where he could fire the shot. So I think this counts as a pretty big failure for Vigilante in allowing that to happen. Vigilante recovers and this time pulls out something a little bit more effective than the nunchucks, his big, dirty, hairy pistol, and the villain surrenders. In short order, the police arrive, including a pretty recurring character, Captain Hall, and they take the assassin into custody, but also Vigilante, because he's wanted for the murders of the villains Quilt and Brand from previous issues, which seems so long ago. I'd actually forgotten about Quilt being a name. I remember Brand, but Vigilante's pretty much claiming self-defense to Captain Hall, but Captain Hall's not hearing any of it. Kind of giving him a lesson on, look, criminal justice system doesn't work this way, and he actually proceeds to read him his Miranda rights, which I thought was kind of funny. Vigilante, you think he's
because you don't believe in Miranda rights, Mike? Is that why?
What's that?
Because you don't believe in due process and the Miranda rights?
I don't believe that. Yeah, I just find what are you trying to do to me? I do believe. I just in this scene, it was like you have the right to remain, and then Vigilante does a backflip.
Yeah, because he's not cuffed at this point or anything.
Yeah. So anyway, I'll say that again, these assassins that dress so gaudily, I'm like, I mean, you'd think you'd want to blend in a little bit. I get it's for the excitement of the story to have these very colorful characters, but it makes it easy for Vigilante to spot them several blocks away. Do you guys have any comments for this part?
Yeah, just sort of the fight scene here at the beginning. I know that I brought this up before, but I'm getting really strong Gil Kane vibes from some of the staging and the angles used here. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any reference for this, but I assume that Gil Kane must have been an influence on Keith Pollard. Just, especially on page 4 where he's swinging off the roof. Just sort of those last two panels, those totally look like they could have been laid out by Gil Kane. Again, I had nothing to back that up.
I don't know. I feel like if he hadn't been a big fan of Gil Kane, we would have the real defined cheekbone in every single character.
On the surface, I don't know if it's there, but back on page 2, the second panel with the guys down on the street, we're getting the character in the foreground there with the sort of brown hair. We're getting the real strong up the nose Gil Kane shot on that too. I think that's all I have for this section.
Yeah, whenever I saw this assassin's costume, it reminded me of a later Marvel character named Solo, who also had a green costume as well. So, I thought that was a terrible costume. So this is definitely also really, really bad. So yeah.
Yeah, so we kind of switched scenes here to Staten Island, which I thought was interesting. They call it, Marv calls it New York's Forgotten Borough. But that's where Chase and his crew's RV is parked, their headquarters. And we learned that the assassin is named Marshall Saber, and that his victim was the head of the New York mob. So it's apparent that Vigilante has some competition in cleaning out the riffraff. And this kind of, I will say that it kind of makes Vigilante's methods look pretty tame because he hasn't actually been arbitrarily picking people off yet. Chase announces that he's going to a promotional party for a friend named Marcia King, and I put the word friend in quotes because it turns out she might be a little bit more than that. She was promoted recently to assassin. Oh my gosh, I've got assassins on the brain. Promoted to assistant DA. Terry tells JJ that a woman like Marcia might be just what Adrian needs, and we soon learn what that is going to be. At the party, Adrian spends some time with his friend, quote unquote, Marcia, dancing.
You don't have to
do
do the air quotes. Nobody can see him but us.
That's true.
Just know, Mike is at home.
Radio.
Let's just say there are some benefits to that friendship.
Exactly. Friends with benefits. Wolfman's scripting, though, I have to say, in this part of the book, his scripting was really snappy and natural and very easy to read. So we moved to a different kind of party on a boat in a harbor off of Long Island, and there's several bikinied women and some gangster types as the attendees on this party, at this party.
Typical Friday night for me, guys. I don't know about you.
Yet another gaudily dressed sniper is lurking on the dock, and he shoots a microphone to the boat so he can overhear the conversation. And this conversation basically catches what's being said is that who will pick up the territory that is left over from the recently assassinated mob boss, which is named Rinaldi. These guys apparently know the assassin was Saber because they name him, and our assassin apparently, this one in this scene, is apparently hurt enough because he makes his move using some sort of dagger and takes out several of the mobsters.
Of course,
yeah. Yeah. Of course, he's announcing during all of the melee that this is a job he's doing for Rinaldi's men. So, I don't know if it's a good breaking point for any comments or not. Is that too soon?
No, I think I have a few things to bring up here. So back to the party where they're kind of talking about this relationship that Chase has. One of the guys who comments on it is Captain Hall back. And again, saying that they're nice people. Again, he still has a sort of a favorable opinion of Adrian Chase, even though he does not have his alter ego of Vigilante. Hopefully that comes into play later in the story, in future issues. We'll see if that goes anywhere. But again, how can it not? So we have this new assassin, Cannon. Again, it looks like somebody from the Chuck Norris Karate Commandos action figure line. So here's what really irks me with these two assassins is we have Saber, who uses guns, and Cannon uses knives. Because I realized that drove me crazy over the rest of this. I almost feel like they just labeled the names wrong or something at some point in the character development and got them backwards.
Well, it's to hide their secret identities.
Yeah, it's a switcheroo. Yeah, that just kind of irked me throughout the story.
Yeah, I don't have anything or comments on that part of the story. So
okay, are we good, Dan?
Yeah, I think so.
So back at Marcia's promotional party, she and Chase are sharing a nice moment on the rooftop patio, and Marcia chastises Chase for talking all business, and then surprisingly, she confesses that she hasn't been with a man for almost 2 years. Again, I keep forgetting this is a non-code book, but she's pretty open about it with him, saying, "Yep, it's been a while," and then invites him in and says, "Come on, it won't hurt." So the first thing I thought of is, and it's not too far removed from this comic, was this seemed like a scene straight from NYPD Blue. This where you have the silhouettes of the intimate moment and everything. And I know NYPD Blue probably came out in the early 90s, but it definitely had that feel to it. In the next scene, Chase is back at the RV reading the morning paper with that glow, and he's chatting with JJ about how proud he is of the new assistant DA. JJ calls him out for having been coming in late or whatever. I forget what he said, but Terry breaks the mood by telling them that both assassins have been let free by Marcia already, and they're being placed in government protection witness relocation program. Which, of course, I revert back to my experience, and you just don't see murderers getting released on their own recognizance, regardless of whatever protection needs they may have. So that's a little bit of a stretch. The two assassins are shown next in a hotel room, in some seedy hotel room, out of costume, and they kind of acknowledge that they killed each other's boss. Saber announces that he gets.
Well, just real quick, Mike. Speaking of the point you just brought up, and I want to point out they are actually in costume still at this point.
Yeah.
They don't have their masks on, but they are holed up in this hotel room with their equipment and their costumes.
Yeah.
So they're in witness protection. So that means they've been arrested. How is it that they would release them with their gear, and their weapons?
That's about it too much.
It's very unlikely. I don't know how corrupt the New York Police Department is.
Lord, yeah. I didn't even notice that I just remember seeing they didn't have their masks on.
Yeah, they're not wearing their masks, but they still have, their weapons and their costumes.
What I thought was weird is that Saber, he's saying, oh, yeah, it's all good, buddy. I get to take over both mobs while you get to go free. I'm like, what? What kind of deal does that sound like?
Right.
So back in the DA's office, Marcia questions herself in letting them go, but she thinks that they might lead to some top mob bosses. Adrian shows up, and he kind of hints around that he's not happy about it, but she tells him she's in charge and back off if you ever want to have what happened last night again. Next we have Vigilante in costume riding his street bike through the woods, jumping over what looked like a picnic table and hopping off of it, and
clearly past the sign that says no motorcycles.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's not jumping over the picnic table, jumping off of the picnic table. He's banging the motorcycle, wrecking these people's lunch.
Yeah. Such a disregard for the rules. I mean, come on.
Being a jerk.
You think he was a vigilante or something.
Yeah. Just real quick to the motorcycle while we're talking about it. In the last issue, he wrecks the motorcycle and makes a comment that JJ is going to have to fix it or make a new one. This looks like the same exact motorcycle to me. He must have got it fixed pretty quick, for him to be able to tear through the woods like this and be a jerk.
I'm sure. And he's still not wearing a helmet like Robin.
Right.
Yeah. So, I'm going to say this. Although I sensed it earlier, we get the first real indication by the dialogue that these two assassins are romantically involved. Am I wrong in that sort of perception?
I didn't notice that. But...
Yeah, I didn't pick up on that either. Where are we basing that on?
Oh, where it says Henry, my love? Is that what you're talking about? We don't have to look for anyone else.
Just some language. I'm not flipping. I'm looking at my notes and not the book. But just some of the body language and some of the dialogue makes it look like those guys are more than just criminal partners. And again, something that might be breaking some new. Oh, here it is. You got, which one's the green costumed one? Saber?
Saber,
yeah.
The gun-toting Saber and the knife-wielding Cannon. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Saber's standing beside Cannon. Cannon's laying in bed, kind of daintily and thing.
Cannon's sleeping on the couch.
Oh, it's a couch. Okay.
So I'll give you that. Cannon's on the couch. Saber's probably got the bed.
Okay, so Cannon's given his plan, telling, kind of describing his plan to Saber's describing his plan to Cannon.
That's the thing with these dumb names.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and he says, Marshall, I love it. I simply love it. Now, I don't know. Just the way that's phrased doesn't sound like something that would, I don't know. It just had a little bit of an overtone. Maybe I'm being overly.
I mean, we all see what we want to see, Mike.
Yeah. These guys exchanged the word love 4 times in 2 panels. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So back to the plot.
Move on.
You're wrong, Dan. Okay. So Vigilante, during all this, Vigilante crashes through the window and takes the 2 on. He's barely making headway when Cannon sticks him in the chest with a dagger. Vigilante passes out on a fire escape as he is apparently shot by Saber. Now, back at the RV headquarters, Terry and JJ are concerned about Vigilante's well-being because he has not checked in yet. So JJ heads out to see if he can find him. At the hotel, Captain Hall and the police find Vigilante's pistol on the street. But when they kick in the hotel room door, they find quite the surprise. Inexplicably, Saber and Cannon are both nearly dead inside the apartment, and Vigilante also nearly dead on the fire escape. One thing that's weird is that the police officer asked Captain Hall if he should unmask Vigilante, but Hall said, no, we will do this one by the book. I'm not sure what book says you can never unmask, a costumed person, but yeah, that was. I
mean, once you're under arrest, you don't have any rights to hide your identity at that point, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. We're gonna do this one by the book, sir.
That would be by the book. It's taking off the mask. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I think so. And then lastly, in a pretty cool final scene, Vigilante's loaded up into the ambulance, which takes off, and it's driven by the scared, crapless JJ going, oh my God, what am I doing? And he's trying to evade the cops. JJ wonders where he can take Vigilante for medical help without the cops catching him. And then the end of the story notes or indicates that the answer comes next issue as we begin to unfold the secret origin of the Vigilante. And that's that for me.
Yeah, I didn't really have any other comments about this issue other than how terrible some of these other characters' costumes are.
They're getting pretty rough. This is definitely 80s action figure kind of costume design going on here.
Hey, this is Rob Liefeld's inspiration right here.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Scott. I'm like, oh, really? I mean, you could have had these characters in plain clothes and they would have been more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing, though, too. We're still sort of reading a superhero kind of book here. How many guys in plain clothes and trench coats can we have? Especially, we'll get them confused. We've already kind of done it.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a comic book. It's a visual medium. We need something visual to kind of distinguish them. Again, could have been handled a little better, I'm sure. Kind of going back to Chase's date, Marsha mentions that it's been 9 months since the accident of, what happened with Chase's family. So that is 6 months of training that he keeps mentioning, and now he's been Vigilante for about 3 months now. And been pretty busy during that time. Again, not as effective. He's still getting thrown around quite a bit. Hopefully they kind of lay off that. I know he's a mortal guy. You want to show that he's vulnerable, but I feel like we're getting into the same ground that the Justice League cartoon got into with Superman early on, where you have your big bad come take down Superman to show how much of a threat he is. But then over the course of the season, you've got Superman looking like a punk. Taken down way too easily. When we show the newspaper of the where Cannon gets arrested, there's also a story in there about the Teen Titans that they show, so they have a quick little cameo there. There's a part where so the hotel the assassins are staying at, they mention is in Hell's Kitchen. DC should never touch Hell's Kitchen. New York is too synonymous with Daredevil. whenever I hear that term, it makes, in a comic book especially, it makes me think of Daredevil. Don't call it Hell's Kitchen. Don't say where they're at necessarily. It's just like, it just brings up Daredevil. You know what I mean? I feel like DC should avoid that. Marvel has planted their flag there.
I agree.
Again, we're getting this sort of mission statement of just taking down guys who've kind of slipped through the cracks of the legal system. He's not really sticking to that. Again, that's a pretty strict mandate for this character. I don't know if they just found that too restrictive or what, or maybe they were just afraid to be repetitive over the course of the series, but we're really kind of straying from that. Again, it's, they're still doing bad things, they're still killers, but when he's saying, I'm going after this narrow focus, we're not really getting too much of that anymore already, 4 or 5 issues in to this run. Again, I kind of flipped through the letters page too on this issue. We've got some pretty good debates going on here in this letters column already. People sort of on both sides of what Vigilante's doing here. And again, it looks like Mark Wolfman is answering the letters in here. And so kind of, letting them know, like, hey, these are the issues we're looking at with this book. Again, one of the letters column list brings up John Hinckley and the insanity plea and that sort of thing. And again, something that was very prevalent in pop culture back then. Again, I don't feel like we hear about, people pleading insanity too much anymore. But again, that was just sort of a rote kind of thing there for a while. It was, sort of a cop-out for people getting away with this sort of behavior back in, the 80s. We do have one writer refer to Vigilante's mission as a jihad, which I feel like isn't a word they would throw around so lightly these days.
Definitely not.
Yeah. So, just, probably a letters column that's worth kind of looking at as we go forward here. It seems like people are kind of on both sides of, how Vigilante is handling things.
I will say that the letters in this issue, I haven't read them all yet, but they're more thought out. They're more intelligent than what you normally read in a comics letters column.
And some of the best letter columns I've read over time are, do get into some pretty strong debates over the course of the series. And, this seems like a book that could definitely go in that way. Is that all we have for issues 4 and 5?
Yep, that's all I had.
All right. So if you're playing along at home again, next time we'll be looking at issues 6 and 7.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to kind of read ahead or follow along with us. Well, is there anything else we want to bring up this time? Or?
Well, we can give our grades on this issue.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah, so I'm going to drop mine down on this one to like a very good, just because I'm feeling like we're getting a lot of the repeats of just random, villains for him to go up against. I really feel like they are just throwaway bad guys.
Right.
So I'm down about a very good on this one.
I'll go fine on this one. I think I'm interested in, we've got the trench coated figure. We don't really see who it is talking to the controller in the previous issue. We have someone who took out Cannon and Saber while Vigilante was incapacitated. Right. So it's going to lead into something. I don't know where we're going yet with it, but we'll.
So, and this may be something ahead that I haven't read yet, but I just assumed that the trench coated figure was Grace in the previous issue.
Oh, it could. Yeah, it might be, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd have to go back and look. I was thinking they were setting up. I'm still thinking we're in the era of subplots where you can actually make stuff up.
Well, yeah. I mean, you kind of are.
Yeah, that could be.
But that's what. Yeah, I just thought they just wanted to show that it was her, so she was trench coated.
Yeah, I mean, I want to argue that I don't feel like that character was really drawn with a feminine build, but you fake that stuff out in comics all the time.
Exactly.
So that's true.
I guess we'll find out in a few issues. So.
Yeah.
Mike,
I don't know what the absolute middle of the road grade is. Is it what is a 5.0?
Is that a very good fine? Very good / fine?
Okay, so we'll call it a 5.0 because this book is alternately fun and then maddening. Because I enjoyed some of the scenes, but then there were some that I'm like, okay, this is just redonkulous. So, yeah, it's middle of the road. I'm okay with it. I'm not like really kicking myself for wasting, 30 minutes of my life reading it. But then again, I'm like, well, that happened. So.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hopefully some explanations in the origin story we've got coming up. Sort of that missing 6 months of Adrian Chase there.
Yeah.
That they keep alluding to here in the book. So, I also want to point out they brought up the mobsters brought up Donna. I can't think.
The godmother.
Yeah, the godmother that we talked
about.
Donna
Omocello or
Yeah. That they, we saw first time around in the Titans annual. So I think she's coming back.
Yep, I've seen that. Omocidio.
Yeah.
Hey, I want to go off script real quick. You can fire me from the podcast if it's terrible.
Right.
We'll cut your pay.
I just thought maybe we could invite listeners to let us know on the Facebook page if there's any particular comic or series of comics or crossovers or anything at all that they'd like us to cover on these types of episodes. Synopsis type episodes are kind of fun for the people reviewing them. But if it's something you like to hear, or if there's a particular topic or character you'd like to hear about, let us know.
Yeah, I think comments are always welcome.
Mm-hmm.
We're always open to feedback. And again, yeah, if there's a story you want to hear us talk about, definitely let us know.
Just real quick. So Mike just announced this on Facebook. I don't think he's even actually.
Mike No, the owner of the
Mike
store.
No, yeah, the owner of the store. Yeah. But he is planning at the shop on Saturday, July 18th, to have a little, what he's referring to as a swap meet. And the other businesses there in the strip mall where Campus Comics is located are also going to be holding little special events. But basically, he's going to let collectors come in and trade comics with other collectors on that day. So if you've got some, key books or, minor key books that you'd like to, swap around and maybe trade towards something else, then consider heading to Campus Comics on Saturday, July 18th. Be watching the Campus Comics Facebook page. He will hopefully create an event for that sometime in the very near future where you can get some additional details.
Nice.
And if you want to go there, we are located at 816 East Main Street, Suite B in Carbondale. Our phone number is 618-457-6011. And again, check the Facebook, Twitter, or just stop by. Scott, where can everybody find you if they want to stop you online?
Yeah, burgcomics.com, burgcomics.com, and that has links to all the pages, the eBay store, the Facebook, Instagram pages, any place you can find me and email me there from burgcomics.com.
Mike, where can people find you? Some old friends.
Oh, Dan. Mike Atchison 5 on Twitter, and I am really paying attention to my ever increasing number of followers.
And I'm Dan Brown. You can find me at Detective651 on Twitter, Instagram, and my TeePublic store. And we'll see you next time.
He says he wants to run the White House like it's Wakanda from Black Panther.